This day, we thank you, Father, for the opportunity to come together, Father, just to learn some things, Father, that might help us, that might save someone's life, Father. Father, we look at the news reports, we look at what's going on in society, Father, and we sometimes are left scratching our heads, not understanding what's going on, but then again, at the same time, Father, we know that we are to do what we can to just help that small group of people that might be in our circle, in our lives, or in our influence. So, Father, let us sit back and try to absorb as much as we can and learn what we can. And Father, I ask for you to touch the speakers that have prepared for these lessons today, Father, that are going to give us, Father, the information that hopefully we can use to help better our lives and care for our loved ones. We also thank Father Symposium Health that has participated and partnered with us, Father, to bring health care to people that are uninsured or uninsured. So, Father, we just give all thanks to you and all praise to your high and holy name. And we say this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, we're about 10 minutes behind. Due to the late start, I'm going to dispense with the purpose and outline. I think we all know why we are here. I just gave the agenda, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker of the day is, as I mentioned, Dr. Benjamin Curry, and he and I spoke a little bit at a dinner, and then there were some other subsequent conversations with Andre, and I just didn't realize the world of prescription drugs. I began to look at it and I said, hey, this is pretty important. We need to get this information out to the community. So that's how we got involved. Benjamin Curry currently resides in Palomar and has lived in and around San Diego for the last 6.5 years. He moved from the Big Island in Hawaii, where he attended pharmacy school at the University of Hawaii at Hilo and received his doctorate in pharmaceutical studies. He did several residencies around the islands working at Maui Memorial Hospital, as well as traveling to Saipan for 6 months to work as an intern at their hospital and pharmacy. He moved back to Southern California right after college and has worked with CVS pharmacies at several locations in positions including pharmacy manager. He has too many hobbies and enjoys everything outdoors, and especially the ocean and primarily surfing. So with that, I'm going to get out of the way and turn the session over to Dr. Benjamin Curry.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Set up here.
I'm going to turn the lights down so we get better see.
Is it on? Daryl just turned it on. Yeah, there it is.
Good. Readable? Great. All right. Like Daryl said, my name is Ben Curry. I'm currently working at CVS Pharmacy. Right now I'm in that location. So if you ever have questions or want to stop by and say hi, you're more than welcome. This topic, we're going to basically just kind of go over prescription use briefly in general, kind of the overuse that it seems these days, and then going to go more so into the substance and drug abuse side of it as well. It's going to be the causes, the different types of it, signs and symptoms, the risks associated with it, and then just kind of hopefully touch on the prevention side and treatment of it as well. Just working in the pharmacy, I see every day just the amount of prescriptions being used for nearly everything, it seems like. It's going up just every day. CDC today is saying nearly 50% of people in the U.S. is using at least one prescription. A quarter are using 3 or more, and then nearly 12% of our population is on more than 5. If you add into like over-the-counter medications and all that, I mean, the risk of interactions and problems with that really just increases substantially. So it's very important if you are taking medication, make sure you're using one pharmacy. That way they can check for these types of interaction problems, as well as just bringing this to your doctors all the time. A lot of people are seeing different specialists and doctors, and they're not always aware of what you're taking. So if I can give you any takeaway, just always have a list of what you're taking. You can always ask questions to your doctors with that regard. So the reason why most people are taking as many prescriptions is kind of just overall health in our society. There's a lot more chronic diseases these days. So almost 50% of our population as well has at least a chronic illness. That's nearly doubled in the last 20 years. So it's really scary. And with our healthcare, doctors are kind of really easy to just give prescriptions out for that. So just be aware of what you're taking, why, ask a lot of questions, make sure it's necessary to take these prescriptions. A lot of these chronic illnesses can be prevented, so make sure you just what you're doing. Look at the lifestyles. A lot of diabetes especially can actually be reversed these days. So if you're doing exercise, reducing salts and what you're eating, sugars, getting enough sleep, and then that sort of stuff. It can all do a lot. It can get you off a lot of these medications. So just being aware of lifestyles can really help out in that regard and prevent a lot of interactions and that sort of thing with medications. So definitely recommend looking into that, asking doctors just what you can do without first jumping into prescriptions. That's what I recommend. Now we're going to the drug abuse side of it while we're here. What is prescription drug abuse? It's basically just taking any medicine, any prescription medicine, in a way that's not recommended by the doctor or prescribed. So that could be taking a larger dose, taking more of it at once than recommended, and also in a different way. So people these days, are crushing the tablets, snorting and injecting it. That's going to give you a different effect, a lot more absorption, which could be, the way that you could get overdoses and that sort of thing. And then obviously, the reason most people take it is to get high and that sort of thing from these medications. And that's the biggest problem with it. So whether it's just misuse, using it, at different times of the day, or abusing the drugs, these medications are just as dangerous as street drugs. A lot of them are made from the same things that some of these illegal, illicit drugs are, where they come from and drive. So it's really scary. One of the perceptions of these drugs is that since they're prescribed by doctors and dispensed by pharmacists, they're safe. But that's just not the case. They look different, but they are derived from these same drugs that people are getting in the streets. It's very concerning, especially in teens and young adults don't necessarily know that. So it's good to just educate that. So now we'll go into just a few stats. National Institute of Drug Abuse says that over 20% of the U.S. population has abused drugs. The CDC finally did, create this awareness and said, the opioid is an epidemic in the U.S., which it is, which has been great, and increased a lot of resources, and you see a lot on the news and that sort of thing, which is great. Over $600 billion a year is just simply going to, the impact of drug abuse. So, it's a really big issue. It needs to definitely be about more. And then in 2014, it's like within the last month, 12 and old, people 12 and older have tried, drug abuse or tried a drug within the last month, which is very concerning. And then the little chart down there, you probably can't read it, but the yellow it's just broken down into the age ranges of who's more likely at risk to abuse these drugs. The most popular range is the young adults from 18 to 25, and then one of the scary ones at the bottom is from 12 to 17. Almost 10% chance of abusing drugs. So it's just something to look out for. Also, the idea is to kind of get the education out young, 12 to 17, and hopefully prevent them, from when they're in the young adult ages, to be trying these medications. The causes, again, the teens and young adults are most likely to do it. The reasons are obviously to get that high effect, euphoria, feeling good. Some of the sedatives are over, it's used to primarily relax you, anxiety, that sort of thing. Stimulants reduce the appetite, increase alertness, tend to like to experiment with just the effects of them in general. And then once you start them, obviously you have to continue to do it in order to get that same feeling, prevent withdrawal. And then a lot of them just basically do it just for the social acceptance side, so fitting in with their friends and that sort of thing. The main types are kind of broken down into three. There's the stimulants. Those are the Adderalls, amphetamines, Ritalin. Those are considered obviously the uppers. So people use those on narcolepsy, to stay up. Use it for that ADHD. A lot of kids use for just kind of alertness with school. But nowadays you'll see, it's more so in adults and that sort of thing are using these to just kind of as performance enhancers. So something to be aware of. They work by basically just speeding up your brain, which increases the blood pressure, alertness, and tension. Problems with that is obviously increased blood pressure could lead to heart attacks, stroke. Very, very scary, even with just 1 or 2 doses. The other 2 ones are considered the downers. Those are the sedatives, anti-anxiety medications, Valium, Xanax. I'll go into those, which are used mainly, primarily for panic attacks, anxiety, and then also for sleep. So you see a lot of people that take the stimulants, obviously can't sleep, they're staying up, so then they'll also add on these tranquilizers and Ambiens in order to get sleep. So you see, once they kind of start on the pathway of one, they're usually going to take multiple ones to be able to get through the day. Those sedatives work by the opposite effect. They work on different chemicals to just slow down the brain, cause you drowsy, tired. Those ones are very dangerous with withdrawal effects. So those can cause these types of seizures, which are causing that. And then the last ones are the opioids, which get the most media right now. That's for the overdoses. So those are the pain medications, analgesics, what they're called. Supposed to be used more for short-term post-surgery pain, and then also for chronic, terminally ill cancer patients. But now, they're used for any kind of pain you get from drugs, for dental pain, just knee pain, anything. So just used for everything, it seems like, which is very scary. Should only be used short-term. Those just work by your pain signals, and those mainly, like I said, the problems with that is the overdose with respiration and took over as well. So the stimulants, like I said, are the amphetamines. These are scary. Like I said, they're very similar to the street drugs that you've heard of, like meth. Methamphetamine, and like you can see the dextroamphetamine. It's really just one little chemical difference, and it's exactly the same thing. So they're very, very dangerous medications. Just seems like they're prescribed to everyone. At my pharmacy, I'm giving them out every day in very large doses, and it should just be used, for kids ADHD. It does work well, but they don't know the long effects of, the heart rate, that sort of thing. Long term can really, all that work, extra work on the heart can really do a lot of dangerous things, and I think just would be really aware of prescribing those to your children without really looking at the long-term effects. I have a whole stat, just between 91 and 2010, the amount of them has been prescribed from 5 million to 45, and I'm sure now it's probably closer to 100. I give these things out. It seems like just way too much. And the majority of them are, I would say, young adults in college years. It seems like everybody's using these just to kind of help with performance and in school, and it's just very scary. So just be careful of people taking them, that sort of thing. The effects of them obviously are increased attention. They keep you up. It uses up all your brain function to really get your alertness up. But it does significantly decrease appetite, can give you that euphoric effect, which makes you feel good, which is why a lot of people take it too. And then it also increases just respiration, which is breathing. The long-term, the negative effects, obviously weight loss is huge. Was traditionally used as a weight loss method a couple decades ago. But with that increased breathing, the high temperature fevers has also caused people to die with the fever, so that's very scary. Blood pressure, obviously, like I said, heart rate, if you have any sort of underlying blood pressure issue, really could be dangerous. That little chart at the bottom kind of shows how it works. You take it initially, the first time you take it, it's going to give you that rush of all your chemicals, which makes you feel good, gives you that good feeling. But then once that drug's out of your system, it drops you into a significantly depressed state. Your body uses up all of your chemicals, and it takes you a long time to really get back to normal. So that happens immediately after you stop taking these meds, which is one of the worst parts about it. So you do get these withdrawals. Like I said, it happens right after, just within a day of stop taking it. You get tired, you get the cravings, you can't sleep, and then it can last into weeks and months where you get that real depressive state. The cravings can last forever, and sleep disorders and fatigue. So just for taking a couple tablets of this really could have long-term effects, which is what you have to really be careful about. The next one's the sedatives. These are primarily the benzodiazepines is what you've heard. So anything that ends with am or pam are considered these sedatives. Most common is the alprazolam or Xanax, used usually for short-term panic attacks. I mean, they're very effective and very useful, but a lot of times I'm seeing them, they're used every day for long-term, like just depression basically. They're using it every day to get by. They're very, very addictive, and they have an effect where you have to obviously take more and more in order to get that same effect. So we'll go a little bit into those as well in a second. The other ones, the hypnotics or tranquilizers, are the sleep meds basically. So those are the ones that basically any adult like prescribe Adderall to, it seems like they're also taking this in order to get sleep. So you have to, it's just too much. So those last in the body a lot longer. Those can be 8 to 12 hours. There's a lot of risks, especially with taking alcohol and that sort of thing. You're going to really increase the effects of those, which could be very dangerous. The signs and symptoms, these are very similar to like taking alcohol. Those depressive effects where slurred speech, drowsiness. It's very noticeable when you see people on these, especially the higher doses. Poor concentration, just cognitive ability. This little chart there shows that the longer you take in the higher doses, you're really going to notice the effects of just kind of the mental impairment. Just kind of see out of it, very foggy. They do have the potential of overdose. You're taking these higher doses to get that same euphoric effect, but it does reach a plateau where you can't overdose on these.
Sure.
All right. Better. Okay. And let's see. So, yeah, it does have a risk of overdose on those, which can be very dangerous. The biggest problem with these benzodiazepines is the possibility of withdrawal. These can be very serious and can occur with just a couple of doses as well. Your body does build this physical dependency to them, which is very dangerous. So the minor effects just once you stop taking them can happen within hours, peaks within a couple hours, within 2 weeks, where you're going to get that rebound anxiety, muscle twitches, hallucinations, insomnia, muscle weakness. And then obviously the major symptoms, which is semi-common, higher doses, is these tonic-clonic seizures and delirium, which is just this major brain fog. And, this can last months to years if it's not properly dosed off. So you do have to see a doctor, and you do have to get on a schedule of getting off these. You just can't stop taking. If you're on these doses, you have to see a doctor, and you have to wean yourself off in a very specific way in order to get off. And like I said, it can just be, within a month of taking these, your body can't build this dependency, and it's just very dangerous because you do have to make sure you're getting off slowly, or else you can have these types of seizures, which can be very level. And so the most, widely, the ones you're going to hear about the most in the news these days is these opioids, narcotics. These are primarily, oxycodone, hydrocodone, Vicodin, morphine, not so much anymore, and then fentanyl, which is those patches, which are probably the most dangerous medications that we prescribe. It's like 100 times the amount of morphine in these little patches that people are using the most. They're able to extract the liquid and just get fatal doses. These are chemically the same as heroin, basically. So, like I said again with the street drugs, these fentanyl and morphines are it's very similar to heroin. And, people start on these ones, it is very likely that if they're not able to get these synthetic opioids, then they can just turn to the streets and get the more readily available heroin, which is obviously very scary because these drugs do cause the most overdoses out of any other kind of drug. So the U.S., that stat down here, is 80% of the entire world's supply is consumed here in the U.S. of opioids, which is a really crazy statistic. And then if you add Canada and Western Europe, that's 95%. So the rest of the world, 5% uses opioids, which for the right purposes, short-term course and that sort of thing, which is pretty wild. And you can see just that increase too from 91 to 2000. I mean, it's gone from 75 prescriptions of opioids up to 210. I'm sure now it's so much more. The symptoms and times of this abuse of opioids, constipation is huge. Any of the opioids, it does stop your stomach muscles. Just one tablet of that. And that could be very severe. Gives you obviously that euphoric effect. So once they start that, they want to keep kind of chasing that feeling, which is why they take more and more and get addicted to it. The slow breathing, it's basically stops centrally your ability to breathe. It slows down the rate and the amount that you breathe. So that's one of the ways that you do primarily get the overdose, is just stop breathing. Drowsiness and confusion and poor coordination. So if you add in the other, medications and alcohol sort of thing, I mean, all these symptoms can increase dramatically, which is one of the biggest reasons to not use it. The other stat is the overdose rate. I can't really read any of it, but the top line there is the synthetic opioids, the prescription ones, and then the bottom one's heroin. So you can see that the overdose rate in these opioids are significantly higher than even heroin these days. And the bottom one is just the amount of deaths here in San Diego this last couple of years, and 82% of the overdoses is with the prescription opioids. So the withdrawal, it's not as severe and it's not life-threatening like those benzodiazepines I went over. They can be significant, but they're not life-threatening unless you have other underlying heart issues and that sort of thing. They typically last a couple days, but the chronic long-term ones can last up to a couple months to a year. The short-term ones, obviously craving, like all of them, with the muscle aches, nausea, cramping, basically the opposite effects. So increased heart rate, increased blood pressure. And it's dependency is basically how your body gets dependent on them. So your body's creating this kind of euphoric effect when you take it. It's very rewarding to you, and naturally your body just wants to continue getting that. So you get very addicted to these effects, and you just have to take it over and over in order to keep that feeling. So that's considered the tolerance, physical dependence, and then addiction is the same. It's just that, whenever that drug finally creates a negative impact on your life is when it's considered an addiction. Get into prevention. So, again, that can happen with any medication, not just these substance abuse. I think it's really important just to talk to your doctor or pharmacist, of course, every time you're starting a prescription. I mean, you want to make sure it's the right one. Make sure you know why you're using it, the effects of it. Do you really need it? Does it have any problems with any vitamins you're taking, that sort of thing? Alcohol, of course. I think it's important to ask with anything you're taking, because there's side effects with everything. Continually check in with your doctor on anything you take. Every time you see your doctor, make sure you still need to take your medications, following the directions, and just being aware of why you're taking it, if you need it, that sort of thing is very important. And then make sure to just never use other people's prescriptions. It's very important. So, in teens, helping to kind of prevent the use at the younger ages. I mean, it's just education, just having meaningful conversations with the kids. So discussing the dangers, trying to just go over the importance of not taking the side effects of withdrawal and overdoses with just a couple of tablets. It's very important to let them know. Set rules. Discuss the dangers of alcohol use. I mean, it's very prevalent. Even using marijuana these days with the new laws, I mean, can have big side effects with some of these drugs too. So I think it's really important to go over that with them. Keeping the drugs safe. It says there's statistics that show a lot of, I think it's 70 or 80% of teens are getting their prescriptions from family members or friends just giving to them. So it's important if you are taking, some of these pain meds for yourself, just make sure to keep them locked up, away from the kids, and I think that's very important. And then properly disposing. So if you do have any of these types of controlled substances or prescriptions in general, you can take them to any police station, that sort of thing. They do have drop boxes. So rather than just having them sit around and expire in your house, or if you're afraid of just having too many, I mean, you can just put them in a bag and drop them off to any police station just to get them rid of them. The treatment side of it, there's two sides. Of course, there's the behavioral treatment, and that's the primary one you want to use with any sort of substance abuse. I mean, counseling, that sort of thing. I'm sure we're going to go over this in a little bit. And just talking about it is the most important thing, trying to prevent relapse and that sort of thing, with treatments and counseling. Certain other medications, like opioids in general, I mean, there is, and benzodiazepines, like I said, we have to wean off. There is a medicated side of treatment as well, where you would have to slowly wean off as well. And those are very important as well. Those have to be used in hand with behavioral treatments. It can't be used alone. There's no studies that have proven that to be effective. So naloxone, I can briefly talk on just naloxone. This stuff just came over the counter here in California about 2.5 years ago. It's great. It used to just be prescription. It's used to basically reverse the effects of opioid overdose. So, and that could be even heroin or any of these fentanyl prescriptions. You can go into any pharmacy now without seeing a doctor. Don't have to have insurance or anything. You can buy these types of medications. It's really important to have anybody taking high doses of pain pills. I mean, the majority of overdoses are at home, so it is important to maybe get one of these. The two forms is the Narcan, which is this very easy to use nasal spray. Has a couple doses in there, and then the other one's this FZO, which is an auto injector. It's voice activated, tells you how to use it. A little more expensive if the insurance doesn't pay for it. But the nasal spray works immediately, and if they did stop breathing, if you dose that within 1 or 2 minutes, I mean, it'll bring these people back to life. It's really, really important to have, and it's just great. California, there's a couple other states that have made it, but we are one of the ones that's kind of leading the way in the availability of it. So I think that's one of the most important things to be aware of. And so if you go into any pharmacy, you can ask for it, and you can use your prescription or your insurance without prescriptions too. That's it. Like I said earlier, the resources are out there. With it being this opioid epidemic, I mean, you can just go online. There's all kinds of sites. Just abuse.gov has so many good resources. CDC, I mean, it's all out there. And then obviously, going to any pharmacy, if you guys have any questions, I mean, we're the most readily available healthcare profession. So if you guys have any questions on any medication related, anything, I would just recommend talking to pharmacists. You know, doctors, they say average is an 8-minute visit is when you go to the doctor. It's really hard to get, you know, enough information if you have any questions. They're just going to kind of rush you out. So if you have any questions, I really would recommend just going in or calling any pharmacy, just asking questions all the time. It's the best thing you can do is just be educated. So, yeah, and that's basically about it for me. And if anybody has any questions, I'd surely love to answer them. Yes, sir.
You gotta take the time
When you get medication, and I know I have to bring in medication for like muscle pain, that type of thing, you always get the printout with the side effects. Now, my question is, I know that's different strokes for different folks, but I know it's not across the board that that side effect will occur to everyone, right?
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, if one or two people gets that side effect in the studies, they basically have to print it on the label. So, if you go to the medication list, it kind of breaks down into percentages of likelihood of getting the side effects. It doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it just means the likelihood, you know, possible, I guess.
So, I mean, is there a certain percentage where that side effect is determined that it will occur to, say, 50%, 60% of the people that take it? In other words, what are the takeaways if I look at it and it says could cause kidney bleeding? What is that percentage based on? What is that comment based on percentage-wise?
Yeah, it's not an exact number. I mean, it is usually based on just the clinical trials at that point. So the percentage of those studied have it. A lot of the more serious ones, I mean, there is resource you can call there's sorts of hotlines you can call for the medications to, if you have a side effect, they call it in. But yeah, it's not really a breakdown of exactly, you know, the exact number of percentages of getting it. It's basically just kind of on the old trials, so it's kind of hard to determine exactly what. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Okay. Mine is,
We
who basically,
want to ask you guys to speak into the mic because we're live streaming, so people outside can't hear your questions. So please speak into the mic.
who basically monitors a lot of this? I'm saying like, okay, your doctor's prescribing you medication. Now, they may have you on 4 different blood pressure medications. Okay, so, and the reason I'm asking this question because it happened to me, and it made me, my blood pressure so low, it made it look like I was having a stroke. So who monitors how much they're going to be giving you?
That's not really a good system in place for that. So, I mean, obviously your physician should be the one monitoring it, but then again, there's usually more than one doctor prescribing. So you could have a cardiologist, your primary doctor could be prescribing different medications, and then, you know, obviously the pharmacy should be the ones catching this kind of thing, but, you know, we don't have access to charts and why usually they're using them. Usually if there is duplicate therapies, they should catch them. I mean, that's the idea, but a lot of people also, you know, get prescriptions at the outpatient hospital, and then they also get them at their regular pharmacy as well, and that doesn't, there's no system for us to check, you know, globally at every prescription you get, unfortunately. So it's just, that's why it's really important to always have lists of what you're taking using one pharmacy and just being aware of what you're getting and asking a lot of questions. But yeah, there's really not a good way, unfortunately. That is one of the drawbacks of that system. It's not one system that checks everything.
So, when people get prescribed meds from the doctor, you have to give it to them, you can't 'Cause I know you said you give out so many per day of certain drugs. There's no way that you can limit that, or it's straight from the doctor, you just have to give it, or how does that?
Yeah, good question. No, definitely, every day I deal with, especially these controlled ones, so, I mean, if it's a high dose, it's their first time taking it, I call the doctors every day on any of these new prescriptions or, duplicate therapies. I have to call, we have to get okays and verbal okays from the doctor themselves on the majority of them. There is a new program with the state that can check all the controls now, which just happened a couple years ago. It's the Cures report, if you've heard of it. But that's a good way to kind of just monitor controls for each person. So that's not like the blood pressure ones you said, but any of the control opioids are now being monitored, at least for the state. So any pharmacy, cash patients insurance, they all show up. So that's kind of a good way to monitor. So we always check that, any sort of control. If it's over a limit, I'd always check there before filling a prescription. But, a lot of doctors, I still do fill a lot more, and it is kind of hard because the doctors will verify, this patient has anxiety, and he needs to take 20 milligrams of Xanax. But unfortunately, there's not much I can do. I think the doctor does prescribe it. I typically have to fill it. If it goes over a dose, obviously I can turn it away if I have to. But it's a
Eric, if I may, I would like to add a little bit to your answer to the last two questions. For instance, I have seen my doctor, the same doctor myself for over 25 years. But every time I go there, he hardly remembers me. So what I want to say is that nobody knows your body better than yourself. Trust the doctors to a certain degree, and trust the pharmacist to a certain degree, but nobody knows your body better than you. So you know how you feel when you take the medicine. You should call immediately. You should make an appointment and tell your doctor, this is what's going on. So don't rely 100% on them.
I agree, absolutely.
Okay, you say you're taking multiple medications. What is the proper way to space those out? In other words, can you take multiple medications one after the other? We say if I have to take 5 pills of different medications, should I take all 5 together? Should I pause out 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes? What should I do?
Yeah, it's just individual, so it really does depend. That's the question you would ask if you bring up with pharmacists, because a lot of them are, different and they can't interact if you take them at the same time. Majority of them are taken either with food or without, so you do have to space them out depending on that. And then a lot of them, like I said, you have a lot of additive effects, so if you're taking 2 different depressants, that's going to just significantly increase the concentration initially. So yeah, you would just have to bring that up with pharmacists, show them the exact list, and then they should be able to space it out and give you exactly the timing and sort of each one. But yeah, that's a very important thing to bring up. That could be very dangerous if you happen to take these things out.
I see students on a daily in the area of trauma, right? I work with the Chula Vista Elementary School District in the area of educated-related mental health, right? I do know that some students go through the process of being evaluated, right? At that time, they're usually prescribed the medication after an appropriate evaluation. Do you all ever sort of talk about alternative medicines, or not so much medicines, but alternative natural support for those students, or is it always the Adderall, the Ritalin, the
At the pharmacy level, you're
antidepressants?
asking, or I guess, unfortunately, we don't usually have the time in order to do the counseling that way.
Is it suggested to the parent to explore that?
It's definitely, it's mentioned the risks and side effects with it. I think that, education that would be a lot more useful and helpful. I don't think every pharmacy is doing that. But I think it's very important.
And are students required still to have that counseling piece? I know we support it at school, right? But how is that supported on the outside? They're taking meds, right? Do they have to see the counselors?
I'm not sure with the counselor side, but just at my retail pharmacy, I mean, we're forced to just counsel every new prescription, regardless of what it's for. I mean, we're
So it's just the counseling?
obligated to talk to them about it, but as far as the counseling, we unfortunately don't have much say in that.
Well, that's a huge piece.
Yeah,
Because you talked about it.
The
in
behavioral treatment, I mean, that should be first and primary before any sort of medication. And I'm hoping they are getting that before they can prescribe some of the dangerous ones. But yeah, I don't unfortunately see any of that side of it. Go straight into the medication flow.
Thank you.
I think some of that might also be things that Dr. Reynolds may touch on in her presentation. If there are issues that are related, behavioral issues, obviously there's a medical component, but maybe she'll speak to that when she expresses her presentation.
You hear about the connections between dollars, doctors, and medicine, and how big of an industry it is. So my question is this: does some of the holistic types of, I wouldn't say medication, but some of the herbs, are they as effective, or are they? Because I wouldn't ask the doctor that question, because it seems like, he has something he's into medicine. That's what he believes. So my question is there, let me give you an example. For instance, Lipitor, as opposed to red yeast rice.
Right.
Is there, when you use those two, is there a difference? Does it really work?
Well, red yeast rice is, I think, like the typical dose is the same as lovastatin. That's where it came from. So it actually has one of the same active ingredients. It is a statin. So, I mean, in that case, it would be the same thing. The only thing is, over the counter, they really don't test them. So you don't, if you're taking 100 milligrams of red yeast rice, you don't exactly know if you're getting 10 milligrams of lovastatin, that sort of thing. That can vary widely, and those have the same side effects as the Lipitor, the muscle breakdown sort of thing. So it's just harder to manage exactly which dose you're getting. I think one of the problems with those holistic ones, they can be just as effective. I think a lot of them are safer to use than some of the medications, but it's just harder to determine the effect in the supplement. Just because they're not really held at the same standards as that FDA compliance medication. So.
Oh, so you're saying some of the same ingredients are in the red yeast rice that's also in the Lipitor?
It's the same active ingredients. So it's lovastatin is another statin, and that's actually the same ingredient that's in red yeast rice. It's the same statin. So it's they're chemically very similar to each other.
So my question would be, how come they would have one to go through 10 years of testing, and another one is on the market where anybody can buy it, if they have the same basic ingredients?
They come on by getting their money, of course.
Oh.
Lipitor is a $1 billion industry. I mean, that's unfortunately all it is. It's the money of these companies. So.
Yeah, that's why I'm so, one of my sisters was taking about 12 different medications, and that's why, I always ask that question. Is that the doctor's first answer, take this, as opposed to an alternative one?
Yeah, and that's just our conventional medicine. That's our beliefs, and our Western doctors here are all about pushing pills, unfortunately, rather than looking at alternatives. So.
Okay.
I kind of have two questions that I kind of maybe be able to answer.
Okay.
So I was wondering, like, the age group of when a kid is able to come to pharmacist on his own and get his own prescription. And then how, as far as the numbers, the statistics, what is the age group that we're experiencing the remissions of prescription drugs? Like, if you know what I mean? Is it from the young kids or is it from the older adults?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or is it from college students that are 18, they got prescribed meds and they're taking it, you know, the wrong way?
Yeah, good question. So each state's different based on what age you can pick up the prescriptions. California can actually, anybody can pick up prescriptions. The control ones, you do need a driver's license, or passport, that sort of thing, in order to pick those ones up. But it's not restricted. You know, some of the other ones, like Hawaii, you have to be 18 in order to pick up your prescriptions, or you have to have a dependent caregiver pick it up for you. But here, anybody can pick it up, which is kind of concerning. And as far as the age range goes, I mean, for me, I think it's definitely the young adults. So 18 up to 25 or 30, I mean, it's probably the most prevalent one you would see, especially with the stimulants. But then, yeah, stimulants, why I would go young adults is probably the most common. And then, I mean, the opioids, the range varies. I give it to 80-year-old women that are taking some of these opioids at equal doses. So, I mean, that varies. But that can happen to anybody, male or female. It seems like it's common in the whole population.
So are you saying that 12-year-olds can go get a prescription filled?
Basically, yeah.
In a lot of cases, it depends on also what pharmacy you're picking up at. Because my mother, she's on a lot of medications, and well, she lives in LA, and my brother picks up her medications. And depending on that medication, even though the doctor prescribes it, that pharmacy will not release it depending on the type of drug that it is. At least where she picks up her medication, it's like that.
Yeah.
And then other times, they, even though my brother is on the list to pick up her medications, sometimes they still don't let him pick them up. And again, he's in his early 40s. So
Yeah. So there's more policy. Yeah, each pharmacy, of course, they do kind of regulate themselves. They have their own policies. I mean, state law, I mean, that's not the case. I mean, you should be able to pick up, caregivers should be able to pick up prescriptions for other people. So, but yeah, that, unfortunately, yeah, every pharmacy does have their own way of doing it.
But with most of the medications, they have to, I mean, it's a period of time you have to wait in between before you can even get another refill of that. But the thing I was, it's a big problem because, I mean, some of the seniors and older people, you know, they're basically on fixed income. And these young people come up to them and tell them, hey, I can make you $300, $400 a day if you give me your medication to sell for you. And that's a way that a lot of them are getting that medication. They go into these older people and say, hey, I can make you some money, you know, if you give me your pills so I can sell them for you.
Yeah. Be a big problem, yeah. Very tempting to share.
one more issue on picking up medications, and I know they're totally two different entities, but like for me, for instance, I'm retired military. I went to pick up my medication yesterday, and even though the lady just saw me, each time you go back up to that window, they still ask you for your ID. And that's a repetitive thing. So, and as far as, you know, like earlier someone commented on different drugs and things like that, you know, you're two different doctors prescribing. I mean, I know maybe it's come across you guys' table before, and with a lot of entities, they just don't work together. But if all the pharmacies and the doctors are on one system for issuing medications for a certain patient, they'll be able to go in there and say, oh, well, they just received this 3 days ago, and now I'm going to issue this. Oh, no, because those two medications could clash, and that person dies.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that.
We're going to limit the questions now. We want to kind of start wrapping up this portion. So we'll take this question, and if there's not any other questions, we'll go ahead and go to the next part of the morning.
But sometimes, because I used to work with kids, and I had to, I was mentoring, so I had to handle their meds. They may have two meds that have the same thing in the class, but one med is for one thing, and the other med is to help with another thing. How does that, work? How do you control that, or how do you manage that?
Yeah, I determine, I'm not sure exactly which one it would be, but, yeah, that's one of the drawbacks. I mean, everything you take is going to have side effects in each class. You got to really just see what's most important to treat and best course. Yeah, that is one of the big drawbacks of medication.
If there are no further questions, we want to thank Dr. Curry for coming out. The reason we chose Dr. Curry is because he's a pharmacist. So he doesn't necessarily write the prescriptions. He fills them.
Right.
So his view on the whole prescription drug epidemic would be completely different from the doctors that are writing multiple prescriptions to whoever. And so I thought a lot of the charts that you presented were very informative. I learned some things about some drugs. I never even heard of those things before. But we want to thank Dr. Curry for coming out. We want to thank Andrea. They are about to get married. I know I said that before. So this was a big thing for them to come out here right in the midst of their planning. And so we appreciate them very much for coming out and being with us. Okay, so that we continue our morning, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Latanya Reynolds. Dr. Reynolds works for Mental Health America San Diego, and she came on the radio program at restlessnationradio.com. It's a radio program we have every Sunday afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m. And she talked about mental health related issues. And I was just like, wow. I just had no clue that so many people that we think are regular or normal, I mean, they're normal, but there's stuff going on, put it like that. And so she did a fabulous job on the radio program, and then we invited her back when we hosted the National Christian Single Seminar. I see Brother Pierce here, and her class was one of the most well-attended classes for the Christian Singles Seminar. All these people that are going out and dating, you just need to be aware. And so we asked her to come back. She accepted, and we're so appreciative to have her here. I just want to give a brief bio, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Reynolds. Latanya Reynolds is a native of San Diego, California. She has a bachelor's degree in human services with an emphasis on community and youth development, a master's degree in public administration, and a PhD in organizational management and leadership. She has over 15 years working with at-risk and out-of-school youth and provided them with education, employment, community service, and leadership trainings that enhance their skills and prepare them for self-sufficiency. She has worked for Neighborhood House Association, which is one of San Diego's largest social services agency, for over 15 years in many capacities, including parent involvement coordinator, Head Start case manager, and program manager for the adjudicated youth program. She was very instrumental in the development of the Desert Rose Adult Educational One-Stop Center in North Las Vegas, which
Dr. Reynolds credits the One Stop Center as one of the most impactful and influential projects. She had the opportunity to provide over 500 youth and services with resources that ensured they obtained their high school diploma and or GED, vocational training and or employment. Currently, she works at Mental Health America San Diego as a program manager for the Mental Health First Aid Training. Mental Health First Aid is an 8-hour certified public education program that introduces participants to risk factors, warning signs, and symptoms of specific types of illnesses such as anxiety, depression, substance abuse, bipolar, and schizophrenia. It builds upon their understanding of their impact, and she teaches a 5-step action plan to support someone that's in a developing emotional crisis. She also volunteers her time with several community organizations, and in the community, during her free time, she enjoys spending quality time with her family and her 5 daughters, who she affectionately refers to as 5D. So without that, I would like to turn the session over now to Dr. LaTanya Reynolds.
Thank you, Pastor, and good morning, everybody.
Morning.
As Pastor said, my name is LaTanya Reynolds. I'm the program manager for Mental Health America for their Mental Health First Aid Training, and I'm talking to you about mental health, mental wealth. So just so you know, mental illness is very common. It impacts 1 in 10 adults and 1 in 5 youth. It's very manageable, but it does not discriminate. So what is mental health? A lot of people want to know, what is mental health? Mental health can be conceptualized as a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So just by a round of hands, how many people in here have ever felt anxiety? How many people in here have ever felt depressed? Did anybody in here wake up and choose any of those feelings? No, you didn't. That's just to let you know that there's no choice in it. However, a lot of us in here that felt those feelings, we were still able to get up and go to work and live life. But we can't look at another person and say, because I did it, I expect you to do it, because mental health impacts us all differently. Yeah. Therefore, we see mental health as a continuum. It's just like a scale. So I don't like the scale when I go to the doctor, but guess what? It reflects my number. And when anybody else going to the doctor, guess what? It reflects your number. That's exactly what mental health does. It reflects our number. There is no continuum for a person that has mental health and then us. We're all on the same continuum. So any day I can wake up and I can wake up mentally healthy. But there could have been a risk factor. And do you know what some of the risk factors are? I could have had a car crash, could have got news that somebody passed away, could have got a pink slip that could easily have me slide from being mentally healthy to being mentally ill. But I want you to know it's manageable, because there's a combination of things, and that was the question that was asked to Dr. Ben earlier. It's a combination. You, the individual, have to be committed to finding the right combination. And do you know how many combinations of things is out there? So the doctors, yes, the doctors prescribe you a prescription based on what he sees that you need. But you don't know how that prescription is going to impact you. You have to be committed to go back to the doctor and say, you know, doctor, the medicine you gave me made me feel this way. Then based on that information, he can either up or lower the dosage. But a lot of people put the responsibility on the doctor because it's a hard work for you to find the right combination of the individual, group, and family therapy, medication, and other support strategies, which could be changing your eating habits, walking, exercising, relaxation, meditation. All those combined can make you feel better, not just one of those. So what is a mental health? It's seen as a continuum ranging from having good mental health to having a mental disorder. A person will vary along these continuums at different points in our life. A person with good mental health will feel in control of their emotions, will have good cognitive functioning, and will have a positive interaction with people around them. But what is a mental disorder, or a mental illness? Can you, a little bit? Anyway, the top just says, what is a mental disorder or mental illness? It is a diagnosable illness that affects a person's emotional state, their behavior, their thinking, and it disrupts the person's ability to work, carry out daily activities, and engage in satisfying relationships. That's what a mental disorder is. But if I go to the next slide, that's the same definition that says, what is a disability? Disability says the same exact thing. It says disability refers to a health condition that disrupts the person's ability to work, carry out their daily activities, and engage in satisfying relationships. I'm going to go back to the next slide just so you see that they say the same thing. So, just let me ask you a question, just so you can think about it. A person who's blind, do you think that a person who's blind is disabled? Okay. A person that has depression, do you think that the person that has depression is disabled? Let me tell you, the person that's blind really is not disabled because the person that's blind can still work, carry out their daily activities, and engage in satisfying relationships. The reason why we said that they were disabled is because we see their physical condition and we have empathy for things that we see. And the person who's blind can still do everything that we can do. But a person who's depressed, you can't see their signs and their symptoms, but they're just impacted by the disability of the person that's blind. But see, we have empathy for things that we see. Guess what you're not going to see at all? You're not going to see any signs or any symptoms as it relates to depression, anxiety. You can't tell that a person has those disorders. You have to get to know them to know the signs and symptoms that you see is a disorder. So what is the impact of a mental illness? This just helps you understand, because if you've never been in a person that's mentally ill's shoes, you probably can't even understand what they're going through. The disability from moderate depression. So see, these different types of impact, they come in 3 different types: mild, moderate, and severe. You can't tell which one a person has. A person that has moderate depression, which is the second impact, is similar to the impact from a person that has relapsing multiple sclerosis, severe asthma, or chronic hepatitis B. Anybody even heard of the word multiple sclerosis? Can you think of what that person that you know was going through? Guess what? That person that was going through multiple sclerosis, they had excruciating pain to just stand up and walk because it's something that has to do with your neural. And so sometimes people can't sit down for a period of time. Mr. Montel Williams actually retired from his job because he had relapsing multiple sclerosis. Guess what? He was in his prime. He was making good money. He said, you know what? I got to retire from this work. I can't do this work no more. It's excruciating to sit down for 2 hours. And guess what? Because he articulated, we understood it. But right, what it says is a person that has moderate depression is comparable to a person that's in Mr. Montel Williams' shoes. But again, you can't tell that a person that's depressed feels like they have relapsing multiple sclerosis. And the second one says the disability from severe depression, which is the worst impact a person can have, is comparable to the disability from a quadriplegia. So a person who is severely depressed feels like a quadriplegia, feels like they can't move. And some of the analogies that people that have these disorders that they use is so impactful. So a person that's depressed, they say, you know what it feels like? My bed is quicksand. Can you imagine a bed feeling like quicksand? Have anybody in here ever been in quicksand? But have you seen somebody in the movies? It wasn't as easy for them to be like, give me my leg back, quicksand. It wasn't that easy. They were struggling to get their leg or their body out. That's what that person that has depression feels like in their bed. Let that be a family member, and all you see is them laying around, not doing nothing, lazy. You can't see that their body feels like they're quadriplegia. So the empathy that you have, you probably don't have too much empathy because you don't see what they're going through. How common are mental disorders? Mental disorders are very common, especially here in the United States. As I mentioned earlier, 1 in 10 adults suffer from a serious mental disorder. And only because I do this training, I feel safe enough to say, if you look around the room, there's more than 10 of us in here. The statistic does not say 1 in 10, except for if you in the church, it does not say except for. It just throws the words out there, 1 in 10. But those statistics should help us out to let us know that it's very common and there's people that's around us that we just dismiss as, oh, she crazy, oh, she lazy. They could be suffering from a serious mental health disorder. And then the same thing goes with the youth. And as the pastor pointed out, that's who I work with. I work with the at-risk, probation and parole, pregnant and parenting youth. I know 1 in 5 of them, whether they know it or not, suffer from a serious mental health disorder. And the way that I see it is through behaviors. I just told you that you can see it in 3 different types: emotions, thinking, and behaviors. And you know what the behavior look like? Aggressive, disruptive, disrespectful. But did you know that hurt people hurt people? I'm going to say that again. Hurt people hurt people. So I can see the youth that's probation and parole, pregnant and parenting that I work with, I can see them hurting because they're crying out for help, because mental health is real. And a lot of people dismiss the behaviors that we see as a bad kid. Mental disorders often co-occur with other mental disorders. So it's hardly likely that a person that has anxiety only has anxiety and not depression, or is not at risk for schizophrenia, bipolar, or any of the other disorders. And then the last one says that mental disorders often start in adolescence or early childhood. So as Dr. Ben had pointed out, as it relates to substance use disorder, a substance use disorder impacts youth under the age of 12, about the age of 12. That's about the age that a youth would develop a substance use disorder. Anxiety, you can probably see the signs and symptoms in a youth that's about the age of 11. But you know what? We'll just use the behaviors that we see, and we'll say, you know, she just bad, or she just shy. When really, if you know that youth, she can have a social anxiety disorder or any of the other behavior disorders that we'll talk about. So what are the most common mental health disorders? Not anxiety, not bipolar and schizophrenia. When people hear the word mental health or mental disorder, they think of schizophrenia and bipolar because they're more used to seeing the signs and symptoms with schizophrenia and bipolar. But the most common, 18.5% of adults are impacted by any of the anxiety disorder in any given year. And there are 6 to 7 types of this anxiety disorders that's out there. 6.8% of adults are impacted by a major depressive disorder, and there's 4 different types of major depressive disorders that's out there. 8.1% of adults are impacted by a substance use disorder. 2.8% of adults are impacted by bipolar disorder. 5 to 10% of adults are impacted by eating disorder, and a little bit under 1% of adults are impacted by schizophrenia. But if you look at the bottom numbers, any mental disorder, it impacts 18.1% of adults. The reason why that number is like that is because any of these disorders can co-occur. So it's hardly likely that a person would just have one of these disorders that's on here. They can actually have a co-occurrence. So what are the different types of anxieties that's out there? I spent more time focusing on anxiety because really, if I was to stand here to talk to you about the anxieties, depression, psychosis, substance use disorder, you might as well take the mental health first aid training, which is what I'll talk to you a little bit about. But I'm just throwing an appetizer out there to let you know, first of all, anxiety is the most common mental health disorders, and these are the most common anxieties that's out there. So a specific phobia, 8.7% of adults are impacted by a specific phobia. A specific phobia is I'm scared of dogs, I'm scared of heights, arachnophobia, claustrophobia. Those are things that specifically make me scared. I am specifically scared of dogs. So to manage that, because I did tell you that mental illness was manageable, if somebody here was to say, would you like to come over to my house after church? Guess what the first thing I say to people?
You have a dog.
That's the first thing I say. I don't know about nobody else, but guess what? I know what makes me have anxiety, and it's dogs. So I'm not just going to go over people's house and put myself in harm's way so I can feel this feeling, because I know what makes me feel this feeling. Some people don't understand it, and they go to all kind of places and don't even understand the specific phobias. I'm not scared of cats. I'm just specifically scared of dogs. Social anxiety disorder. It impacts 6.8% of adults. PTSD, right there, this number is really reflecting the men and women that's coming back from war, because it's not reflecting us civilians. That number is 3.5%. But if it included us civilians, that number would definitely be high, because it's exactly what it says. after a traumatic event, we feel some type of anxiety. Do you know what post-traumatic disorders are? They come from anything that's traumatic. There's a whole list of traumatic things that's out there. Generalized anxiety, which is the scariest one to me, because there's nothing specific that causes you to have this anxiety. It's just general. So we call it GAD. That impacts 3.1% of adults in any given year. And that's any day, all day, something is constantly worrying me. Did I turn in a report? Did I pay my bill? Did I call my mom? Did I do this, pick up the kids? Did I turn off the lights? Did I sign the time sheets all day long? Something's going on. But again, that's manageable because you can have a to-do list, things that you can check off after you do them. Then there's a panic disorder that impacts 2.7% of adults. And a panic disorder is a distinct episode of anxiety. There's nothing specific that causes you to have this panic disorder. It just comes out of nowhere. Then we have OCD, which is an obsessive compulsive disorder. It impacts 1% of adults. And this last one, the scary thing is, this is the one that I'm focusing most of my time on, and that number is increasing, and that's agoraphobia. Agoraphobia is people have a fear of going out in public because they think that something's going to happen. Do you know that that's majorly happening right now? Where people don't want to go to concerts. They don't want to come to events. They don't want to go to conferences or workshops because they have a fear that somebody's going to come there and do something. So now we can, yes.
I'm sorry, I just wondered, how that's associated with social anxiety disorder. If that's kind of related to it, I didn't really catch you explaining social anxiety disorder.
When we get to the questions, I'll try to get back to that question.
All right.
Yeah. So for agoraphobia, it impacts 0.9% of adults, but that number is definitely increasing. And what I can say is I've seen it with the school districts. There's kids that have fear to go to school. So guess what the teachers and so forth see? They see the behavior of a kid that's acting disruptive because they don't want to be in class because they have a fear. If you don't understand the combination that I just told you, then you can kick a kid out and not realize that he has every reason to have fear to go to school based on all the school shootings that's happening. Right. But because you only see his behavior, you're not connecting that he's crying out for help because of the behavior. And any mental disorder or any anxiety disorder, it impacts 18.1% of adults, and that number is because it can co-occur as well. It's hardly likely that a person will have one type of anxiety. So what are the signs and symptoms of anxiety? They come in 3 different types: physical, behavioral, and psychological. So physically, these are some of the things that you might notice with a person that may be having an anxiety episode or crisis. They can have pounding heart, chest pain, rapid heartbeat, blushing, fast breathing, shortness of breath, dizziness, headache, sweating, tingliness, choking, dry mouth, stomach pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle aches and pains, especially in the neck, shoulders, and back, restlessness, tremors, shaking, and an inability to relax. And if you didn't notice, I read it fast. The reason why I read it fast is because I want you to see how anxiety feels. That's just physically. Some risk factors. What will cause a person to have some of these feelings? Distressing and uncontrollable events. Do you know how many things fall under that bullet alone? Yeah. There's so many things. Stressful or traumatic events. A lot of these can co-occur as well. These are just risk factors. So if I'm aware and I see some of the signs and symptoms, what I'm going to do is think, and am I aware of the risk factors that person's going through? Because the signs and symptoms coupled with the risk factors does equal the possibility that that person could be mentally ill. Now, one thing I just learned how to say in my training, well, not learned how to say, but I just came up with it, and it's something simple, but I learned it at my church, and my pastor said, if it quacked like a duck and it looked like a duck, then it is a duck. But if you really think about it, sometimes we might hear a quack, and we might look and I might see that it's a family member, my husband, my mother, my father. I will hurry up and unsee what I saw because I know the stigma with mental health. So I don't want it to be close to me. Well, I'm letting you know that guess what? If it quacked like a duck and it looked like a duck, I want to give you the tools because it is a duck. And you just don't want to dismiss what you see because it's close to you because that's not going to help the person. The risks are there. The signs and symptoms are there. It's just that you have the tools to approach that person, to encourage them to go get the right help. Then we have difficult childhood, a history of childhood anxiety, ongoing stress and anxiety, another mental illness, having a previous episode of depression and anxiety, a person that has family history, or more sensitive to emotional nature. So we can have family members that's impacted by these risk factors that we've been impacted by too, but we're not depressed or have anxiety, and we approach that person and tell them that they shoulda, coulda, woulda, do it like us. Let me let you know, they not you and you not them. Okay? So they're not going to deal with things the same way you deal with things. Illness that's life-threatening, chronic, or associated with pain. That's what, when Dr. Glenn was here, that's what I was thinking about. Individual that has a physical health condition, that's what the doctors see, and that's what they're helping. Because remember, we help based on what we see. Sometimes the medication makes you feel depressed or suicidal. What I'm training people in my training to do is once you see the health condition, now I want you to be aware of things that you can't see, because that health condition is a risk factor for a person to be depressed or have anxiety. Did you guys catch that? So half the people that we know that have a health condition, they probably have a mental health condition, but you can't see it. But the health condition is the risk factor that they may be depressed, that they may be have anxiety. A person that has medical conditions, as I mentioned just a minute ago, side effects of medication, recent childbirth. A lot of people don't even talk about this, but as it relates to the postpartum depression, we don't even talk about men being impacted by postpartum depression, which they are. And then there's a postpartum psychosis. You guys know what a psychosis is? We don't even talk about this in this training right now, but a psychosis is a disconnect from reality. So there are people who are having a psychosis who can hear, see, and feel things that you can't see, hear, or feel because you are not in a state of a psychosis. If a person that's in a state of a psychosis was to complete a homicide, that person wouldn't go to jail. They would go to an institution. But we have over 36 women that's in jail because they had a postpartum psychosis. But because people don't understand mental health and know that it's real, that's why they're in jail versus institutions. That's why men not getting help for postpartum depression, because not a lot of people is talking about postpartum depression for men. We talk about it more for women. Well, guess what? I train people to see what you can't see, and if it's postpartum that's impacting a woman, guess what you'll see with a man? Through his behaviors. And people cry out for help. Remember, her people cry out for help. So what is recovery? Because recovery is possible, believe it or not. And this is one of my favorite slides. Recovery is the process in which people are able to live, work, learn, and participate fully in their community. That's a lot of us, because almost half of us raised our hand and said that we felt depression or we felt depressed. But we was able to recover. So that lets you know that recovery is real. It's how you say it though. Keep in mind your approach. When you approach a person, you can't approach a person that's hopeless and tell them you need to just do this and do that. Good luck. It's how you instill hope inside of a person. So this next one, for some, this is the ability to live a fulfilling and productive life despite a disability. Do you guys know that that's possible? Despite a person having schizophrenia, bipolar, anxiety, or depression, they can still live a productive life. But to that person, no, they can't. No, they can't. So now it's up to regular folks like you and I to encourage them and instill hope in them, let them know, yes, you need to find the right combination so you can feel better. Because again, people like that say, my doctor didn't do. My doctor. It's not on the doctor, it's on you. You need to find the right combination. And if I give you 4 letters, A, B, C, D, do you know how many combinations you can find out of those letters alone? Just those letters. And then we just talked to Dr. Bean about how many medications was out there, how many doctors is out there, how many psychiatrists is out there, how many psychologists is out there, how many herbal remedies are out there, and now that person has to find the right combination of all those things. That can take for forever. But you have to instill hope and let them know. So for this second one, just for example, it's how you say it. If you tell a person in your shoes that you need to just go to the doctor so you can feel better, I don't think that person's really going to go. But if you approach that person with hope and really believe it, you can instill hope and that person will do it. just based on how you said it. So an analogy that I use is, my mom is watching my 4-year-old nephew, and me and my mom were different now. I am very creative and innovative to get my point across. My mom is kind of cut dry. So she tells my nephew, go turn off the TV and go take a nap, while Paw Patrol is blasting through the TV. So this is a 4-year-old, you guys, that she told to go turn off the TV while the favorite show he's watching is about to come on. He throws a fit. And she don't understand why. And I'm letting her know it's how you instilling hope into him. So she was like, let me see what you would do. So I approached him and I said, what's wrong with you? He said, I gotta take a nap. I was like, you gotta take a nap? You're so lucky. Dang, I wish I could take a nap. Well, you know what? I tell you what. Dang, you're so lucky. Okay, when you get up from your nap, I don't even want to tell you I'm so happy. You're going to ride your scooter and you're going to get an ice cream. Do you know what my nephew do now? He like, auntie, get out so I can take a nap. Because guess what? I just instilled hope inside of him. I let him know when you wake up from this nap, you're going to ride a scooter and you're going to get an ice cream. You guys, guess what? He only got a scooter to ride at my house. That's the only toy he has. So that's all he can do every day that he wake up from a nap. And unfortunately, the ice cream truck drive down my street every day. So what I just told him he'd do, gonna happen today, happens every day. It's just how I said it today that made me so excited to take his nap today that he didn't realize I do this every day, auntie. So again, it's how you instill hope inside of a person. And then to my 5 daughters, they never like to eat mixed vegetables. But I got kids that ask for seconds of mixed vegetables. I walked into them and I said, you want your hair long like Rapunzel? You better eat those mixed vegetables. I had little girls eating mixed vegetables. Mom, can I have seconds mixed vegetables? You sure can, because I instill hope inside of them, creatively and innovatively. Okay? And for others, recovery implies a reduction or complete remission of symptoms. Now let me tell you this, with this slide, I learned this from my church too. You guys all know what an EKG machine is? It communicates to us, believe it or not. It's going to do the up and down, or it's going to do the straight across. If we was in the hospital connected to the EKG machine and looking with our peripheral, we would want it to be going up and down. But if we was to be walking around with an EKG machine every day, monitoring how we feel, we would want everything to be copacetic and straight. All good, all the time. Guess what that means? That's death. You know what life is? Ups and downs, highs and lows, good days and bad days. So when I'm instilling hope inside somebody, because I can instill hope inside of them, I got to let them know you're still going to have some good days and some bad days. Because the minute I let them know that I instill that hope inside of them, the minute they have a bad day, guess who they come and looking for? Me, but I'm going to keep it real with them. I'm human too, and I have good days and bad days. But you know what? If you find the right combination, you can reduce the remission of symptoms. I didn't say you're going to have a great day and you're never going to feel these feelings again, but you can reduce how often you feel them. That's keeping it real and instilling hope inside of a person. Recovery is a deeply personal process of regaining and gaining physical, spiritual, mental, emotional balance. And I believe that's what you were saying earlier. You have to be committed to finding the right combination. You have to be committed to making yourself feel good. The person learns to cope with illness, crisis, or trauma and associated challenges while adjusting their lifestyles. That's many of us. Recovery, therefore, is a process of healing and restoring health, wellness during stressful episodes of life. That's how it's manageable. Early intervention is important and it is possible. Many people have a long delay between developing a mental disorder and receiving appropriate treatment and support. The reason why is because they don't even know that the feeling that they have is a disorder. Or if they know, they don't know where to go to get the help. Or if they know where to get the help, there's a stigma. Nobody want to go to get help knowing that people call people crazy, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. The longer the delay in getting help, the more difficult recovery can be. And it is critical that people get support from family and friends. Early intervention programs are designed for people with mental health problems and those who are developing mental health disorders, as well as the caregivers that's working with that individual. So if I can, one of the youth that I told you that I work with, the probation and parole, he's 24 years of age. But his maturity level is about the age of a 13-year-old. He has 2 kids, and this is why I'm committed to working with the group that I work with. This 24-year-old was born with crack in his system when he was an infant. They gave him some methadone to withdraw him off that crack in his system when he was an infant. When he was 5 or 6, he could not sit down and would not focus in class. So you know what they diagnosed him as? ADHD, so they gave him some Ritalin. By the time he was 11, he had already experimented with alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana. By the time he was 13, this is the first time he got locked up. He went in jail, got out, went to jail, got out. He did that for 10 years until I met him at 24 years of age. Without early intervention, this little boy doesn't have poor long-term functioning. So for the time that he was born to the time that I met him at 24, nobody diagnosed him as being mentally ill. They just saw the behaviors and so forth, and they disciplined him based on that. He has an increased risk of depression and suicide, but let me just tell you this. Men are emo. They're not emotional. You guys know there's a difference between emotional and emo? There really isn't. It's just how you say it. Men feel better saying I'm emo versus emotional. You know why? A man approached me and said, LaTanya, I don't get emotional. I don't cry. I don't do that what women do. I might get emo. And I was like, you get emo? What is that? He was like, I might get, but I don't all the way. Really? So you hide it. You mask it. Because guess what? You can mask it all day long, but it's going to come out by way of aggressiveness, abuse, womanizing, and some other ways. Hurt people. It doesn't stop. Domestic violence, hurt people. Bullying, hurt people. Okay? The next one is slower psychological maturation and a delay in assuming adult responsibilities. Which need I say more? He's 24 with the mindset of a 13-year-old. And he's the father of 2 kids, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. There's a strain on relationships and a subsequent loss of social support. Him and the baby mom is not together because he can't do what he needs to do in their family. There's disruption of education and employment. He's been dropped out of school. He has increased his use of alcohol and drugs. He has lost self-esteem and confidence, and you know how that looks? Womanizing, domestic disputes. That's what that looks like. And the reason why I'm committed to working with these individuals is because if I don't, they just don't have a greater chance of problem with the law. And when you go to jail, guess what? That's a whole another set of risk factors. And then you get out, and if nobody is addressing it or seeing straight through it, all you're doing is having a cycle, which is what we have right now. So what can you do? You can actually take the mental health first aid training program. The mental health first aid training program is the help that's offered to regular folks like you and I. You do not have to have a psychologist or MSW or a licensed social worker degree to be a mental health first aider. You just need to be a human that can recognize the signs and symptoms, feel comfortable enough to approach that person, and encourage them to go get the appropriate professional help. Because let me just tell you this, I have never seen a psychiatrist or psychologist come and knocking on the door. Do you have anybody that's suffering from anxiety or depression? But I did that as a case manager with Head Start. I went to over 500 complexes and knocked on every single door to find out, do you have somebody in your household age 3 to 5? That's just to get them in school. It would be lovely if we had psychiatrists and psychologists knocking on doors, because remember I said 1 in 10 adults and 1 in 5 youth suffer from a serious mental health disorder, but there's a stigma that causes people not to want to go get the help. The first aid we teach in that class is given until appropriate treatment and support are received or until the crisis has been resolved. And the pastor read all of this earlier, but I'm just going to go into it really fast. It's an 8-hour training that you go through. Once you finish it, you get certification. The class introduces you to the risk factors, warning signs and symptoms of specific types of illnesses such as anxiety, depression, substance use, bipolar, and schizophrenia. Once you're in the class, it helps build understanding of the impact, like I just showed you earlier, the impact that it has not on you, but on the individual. Because in the training, we can't help you help somebody else until we help you recognize that you may be suffering from these. Because it's easy to see it in somebody else. But when you approach that person, they can see it all on you too. And why is that person going to do what you tell them to do when they know you need to do it too? It builds understanding of the impact, and then the last thing it does is teaches a 5-step, 23-word action plan to make you feel comfortable to approach a person and encourage them to go get the appropriate professional help. Why is this class important? Because mental health problems are common. There's a stigma associated with mental health problems. Many people are not well informed. I just went through this one. Professional help is not always on hand. People often don't know how to respond, so guess what they do? Nothing. That's not helping. A very simple calling 911 or asking for PERT can go a long way. And people with mental health problems, they don't often seek help. Why do you think that is? Because of stigma that's out there. This is where you can register for the mental health first aid training program. My name is LaTanya Reynolds. It's been a pleasure to talk with you today. Thank you.
We want to open it up for questions. If there's any questions at all, we just ask that you speak into the mic because we are live streaming. So please use the microphone.
How you doing?
Fine.
My question is, now you know somebody that basically has a lot of that, okay? And you tried to work with it and deal with it. How do you get that person ready to go to get help? Because I know from experience, it does affect you. And what you do is you just say, okay, yeah, I'm not even doing it anymore. I'm just letting them do what they want to do.
That's a great question, and if I can. I have 5 daughters, and I'm going to tell a story so you can understand where I'm going to. I have 5 daughters, and I tell them 3 things. Go to school, get your grades so you can live a good life. But I also work with these probation and parole kids, and I tell them the same exact thing. Go to school, get your grades so you can live a good life. The funny thing is, the ones who I do not take care of, put a roof over, these kids, they go over and beyond, and they do it just for me. That's a special feeling. Now I'm wondering why these kids that I birthed, take care of, and do it, why they don't hear me. Because as a parent, they hear so much. They hear me say, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. Do your schoolwork, go to school, get your grades, and live a good life. And I test them, because sometimes I just approach them and say, good morning. And they say, I didn't do it. I know you didn't do it. Because they got a wall that comes up. Because I'm my mom, they pick and choose what they want to hear from me. So the philosophy is it takes a village. You guys are aware of that, right? It takes a village. Not only do it take a village to raise a child, but it's going to take a village to deal with a person that has mental disorder, because based on what we went through, I may not have the right tools previously. Some of the tools that I'm talking about is, a lot of people know how to talk, but not a lot of people know how to communicate. A lot of people know how to hear, but not a lot of people know how to listen. So if you've been approaching people with the wrong tools and telling them what they shoulda, coulda, woulda, needed to do, they probably shut you down a long time ago. So anytime you approach them to talk about something like this, oh, they shut you down. But you need to find that village, because there's somebody that person is receptive to. And guess what? As it relates to my kids, I got to find that person. Sometimes it's their cheer coach. They tell me everything the cheer coach say. It's the gospel. So guess what? I'm thinking, okay, cheer coach the gospel. I go to the cheer coach and I'll tell her, can you talk to my kids today and tell them go to school, get your grades, and live a good life? She said, yeah, and guess what? When I pick my kids up from cheer practice, guess what they like? They stoked. They like, Mom, guess what? Guess what the cheer coach said? No, Mom, I'm serious. This is serious. She said, go to school, get your grades, and I'm going to live a good life. Right? Prior to my training here, I would have been like, are you serious? That's what your cheer coach said? You have never heard me say it? No, not right now. Right now, the creative and innovative mom that I am, I'm like, are you serious? She told you that? I cannot believe that. That's valuable, very valuable information, because I care about the outcome, not who told them to go get the help. So with the person that you see, you need to care about the outcome. Find somebody else who that person is receptive to. Tell them what you've been going through. I promise you, that person can say it and that person can do it just like that, because they're not you. And every time you come around, the wall come up. So you're never going to be able to get your point across. But you need to find that village of individuals that can say the same exact thing that you've been saying, and I promise you that person will get it and they'll do it.
Hello, how you doing?
Fine.
I was questioning about that social anxiety disorder. I guess I wanted to know more about that, because we briefly went over that and I didn't get a feel for that, because it's kind of similar to another disorder that you was trying to explain. And it kind of related to that. I just wanted to know more about it.
Well, what I can say is, I intentionally didn't go into depth with it here because this was just a workshop to touch, but I definitely would encourage you to take this training because the training goes into depth and gives you different visions and activities to see what a social anxiety looks like compared to a panic disorder, compared to a specific phobia. So in this training, all I did was listed the 7 different types. In my training, we go into depth, and not only do we go into depth, but we put you in that person's shoes so you can see what it's like to have a social anxiety or a psychosis or specific phobia or PTSD, and then we list out what those things look like because it's different for everybody, but everybody's impacted differently too. So really what my training teaches you is 3 virtues: faith, patience, and empathy. If you don't have those 3 virtues, I can imagine your job being very hard working with a person that has a mental health disorder. Because you know what, in this society, we look for quick fixes. Yeah. There's no quick fix for this. Not even in my training, and I keep it real with you and let you know there's no quick fix. But you have to be committed to finding the right combination. First of all, you have to be committed to know that this is a disorder that I have. Once you accept that, then you'll try to know that this is what I need. I think he's about to bring the mic.
Pretty simple. When is your next class?
Thank you. I have classes, and if you have this website, you can go to my website. We have classes throughout the whole San Diego County. They're free trainings. If you go on the website, it'll tell you what days and what times in the different regions. We have one in the south, east, north, and then north coastal and central, but they're all different days, different times. Yes, sir.
And Latanya.
Yes.
You do them there, but you do them in remote locations?
Yes. If you have a place that you have 10 or more individuals, I will come to your location. Evening, days, weekend, it does not matter. Me and my team is very passionate about getting this information out. And as I was telling Dura earlier, even if it was one person in here, I would have did the training or did this workshop as if it was a whole bunch of, because I'm planting seeds. Once I plant that seed and that person sees the need, then they'll go tell somebody else. So I take it seriously with one person, 2 people, or a room of people. You get the same type of training that we have.
Well, we'll set something up at a later date, but we'd love to have you come back and give the full course. But we'll talk about that afterwards. Any other questions?
How much is your training?
It's free. Free. And you do get a manual and you get a certification. It's good for 3 years. And we have this manual right now. I'm just talking about the adult. We have this module in 5 other modules. We have it for adults. We have it for adults working with youth. We have it for faith organizations. We have it for a higher institution, for veterans and families, and for EMT and first responders. And then we also have this training in Spanish. Yes.
The Bible mentions that we should train up a child in the way they should go, and after they go, they will not depart. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned a faith connection.
Yes, sir.
So obviously, I'm going to ask that question. Making a faith connection with someone who has a mental disorder, did you find that transition difficult, or did you find it when you attributed to a motivating factor from a higher source to them? Did you find a connection there?
Yes, sir. And it spoke volumes to me because mental illness knocks on my door and my family door. And we go to places like church, and for me, I'll always view the church as a hospital. So based on my view, I had a perception that if I was ever sick, I need to go to church however I look, however I may be. But that's not the welcome that I got in the church. So once I got there, my church is New Creation. And the reason why I love that name is because I am a new creation. Prior to this, me being involved in that church, my looks would have prevented me to think that I don't belong in church because they had a certain perception of what people look like. But being a new creation, the information letting you know you can be whoever and you can inspire through the church. And through the church, the message is the same. We don't want to tell people just pray on it because prayer does not help everything. And sometimes that's what we believe, and that's a message that we give. We need to let people know that there's a combination of things. And sometimes when people were hurt and they go to the church, The church didn't give the best communication to tell a person that it wasn't all just pray. They told me pray harder. So I believe that I was able to take the theory and the life that I live and bring those two together, and my passion is aligned with what I'm called for. Thank you.
Okay, first I want to say, sister, this is a beautiful presentation you've done, and it brings hope to me and to us and how enlightened our people are to help our people, because our people need help.
Yes, sir.
You know, and so I just want to say, in schizophrenic, I have a brother that's schizophrenic. He operates normally, and in this conversation, all of a sudden, he'll just start losing it and start talking about something that's just off the wall. So what can we do to help that?
Well, first of all, you don't want to be judgmental. And knowing that sometimes to have schizophrenic, sometimes you can go in and out. If you've never been in those shoes, it can kind of catch you off guard. Well, trainings like this definitely take you out of your shoes, put you in your brother's shoes, and once you get back in your shoes, you will never see him again like you see him now, because now you're like, oh, so you mean I could just be having a good day, and just all of a sudden, I hear somebody talking to me? Yes. And guess what? You won't see that person, but he's in a state of a psychosis. He hears, see, and feel things that you don't. Based on this training, now you can understand him a little bit more, and instead of minimizing or dismissing what he sees and feels, you can help him a little bit more. One of the ladies in my training, she basically shared with me that her brother just got out of prison for 10 years. He's a big, buff guy. But when she walked past the hall, he was crying like a baby in the middle of the hall. So she looked at him because she knows what she looked. She's like, what's wrong with you? And he told her, the walls is closing in on me. With this training, she did one or two things. She actually told him, you know what, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hold that wall. When I hold that wall, I want you to get up and I want you to come out as fast as possible. She said, I went in and I went like this to the wall. I didn't hold it, but I gave him some hope, because the way I told him, when I come in here and I hold them walls, I want you to get up and run out as fast as possible. She could have did this. Boy, ain't no walls closing in on you. Get your grown butt up and walk up out of here. She could have did that, which is what some of us would do. That didn't help him. He actually would have sat there and probably fainted, because to him, the walls was closing in on him. Now it gave her another way to look at it. My brother probably was going through something that I didn't understand. I'm going to give him some hope by the way I tell him what I'm going to do. It's going to make him believe that I did that and get him up and out. That's all that matters. That's really all that matters. And that helped him, but it also helped her. Yes, sir.
Any more questions? Any more questions?
So again, making connections, to an individual. As you say, we have to diagnose, get some kind of a feeling as to where they are, right? In other words, to make a connection. So even if I take your training, I got to see where that person is.
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
So if a person is taught a faith-based connection to God, and you are trying to apply some of your principles, how do you make that connection through God? In other words, because I went to a class one time and it's been exposed that there are a lot of disorder or mental disorder people in God's church. So how do you make that connection? Or how would you approach it in making that connection to them?
Well, going back to the first part of my slide, it said that mental illness does not discriminate. It also told you that 1 in 10 adults and 1 in 5. It don't say it's set forth. So if I was the pastor of a church and I'm looking out into the congregation, I can't tell which one of my individuals in the church are suffering, but I know that there are some people that are suffering. So what I want to do is start having conversations that matter, start maybe having some of these trainings involved, to start talking about things that, guess what, nobody want to talk about. In my training, I talk about the elephant in the room. Nobody else in the trainings talk about that, but I see mental health as being an elephant in the room, something that everybody see, but nobody want to talk about. First of all, a lot of people are scared to talk about it because of the reaction that people give, because it's a stigma. Well, I believe that God put me in this position to, one, take the theory and apply it to practice, so now I can have conversations with my brothers, my husband, my uncle, because guess what? Mental illness does not discriminate. And when I first got my certification, my husband told me, babe, don't come home diagnosing nobody. That's what he said. So already I know that somebody that's close to me want to mask it. I've been given the gift to see past what you want me to see. And it is what it is. If it quack like a duck and look like a duck, it is a duck. But let me tell you how it came out. We was driving down the street one day, and my husband just was driving. He was driving, I was in the passenger seat. He slapped off his hat. I was like, what'd that do? Why did he do that? But guess what? I don't just always be ready to just ask questions because everybody already know how I am. So I waited. Another completely different day. We was driving down the street. He slapped off his hat again. The third day is when I asked the question. Because now I have to have the guts to know I seen this and I approach him because I already know he's going to ask me what am I talking about. So I have to be ready to say what I saw. And I asked him, babe, why did you slap off your hat? And his response to me was, you didn't see the police. Guess what? I said to him, no, but what that got to do with you slapping off your hat? Remember I just talked to you guys about PTSD? My husband suffers from PTSD because in his younger years, he has been pulled over many times for wearing a green hat, a red shirt, whatever. So now as a 44-year-old man, he feels anxious when he see a cop if he got a hat on because he believed that that's why he got pulled over many a time before. So when he said that, as if I should have knew better, I said, that's PTSD. You know what his response is to me? What's that? Okay, so I had to have a conversation that matters. You know why? Because there's many women whose husbands react when the police pull them over. I need my husband to respond when the police pull him over because I want my husband to come home. And not a lot of people understand that PTSD is a connection to being pulled over by the police based on if you've been harassed or not. So now guess what? I've been able to have this conversation with my husband who already masked himself and told me don't come home and talk about something that now I can talk about to anybody else, to other brothers, to the little African-American boys that I work with. I talk to them about PTSD because when you know better, you do better. Amen. And when you don't know no better, you don't do no better. So now we have to have conversations that matter. Yes, sir.
You know, you already said it, but I can tell you're very gifted.
Thank you,
number
sir.
one. And even going back to David, and I believe this, what I noticed about you, the way you were responding to some of the challenges that you've seen, sort of reminded me how Christ dealt with individuals. And I think all through the Bible, when it says, return not evil for evil, but overcome evil with good. Now, here Christ is using, then he says about your enemy. If your enemy hates you, pray for them. Those who despitefully use you. In other words, here are biblical terms. And all through the Bible, Jesus is dealing with all kind of issues. And a lot of them even mental. Mm-hmm. And so, because of the way he would answer the Pharisees, he would take what they would say and turn it around so they can see who they really are. And that's sort of, you remind me of some of the things that Jesus was teaching. And so, in the church, if we can learn to deal with folk instead of condemning the folk and try to see beyond, to say, hey, this person has an issue. Mm-hmm. And I think that I think that's what the Bible is talking about. Helping us. God already knew folk had all these issues. He already knew it. So I think he's teaching us how to get along with one another in spite of each other.
Thank you very much.
We want to get to the point where we are again wrapping up. I want to ask if there are any final questions for Dr. Reynolds. If not, we can actually proceed into our closing. So are there any final questions? Let's give Dr. Reynolds a round of applause. Staying in touch with her, as I mentioned before. Dr. Reynolds came on RestlessNationRadio.com, our radio program, and she just did a fantastic job. We did a whole 2-hour segment, and she was just, I was just sitting there like, wow. And so she came out to the National Christian Singles Seminar. As I mentioned before, it was one of the most well-attended courses at the Singles Seminar. And so now she's volunteered to come out here again today. So we're going to stay in touch with her. We'll probably schedule it a few months off to give her time and give us time. But we would like to host a full 8-hour class right here. We'll take a Saturday. And we want you, and you've just gotten a taste. She only had an hour. She only had an hour. Now, if she gave the full course, imagine how you would be prepared to be able to go and help people in your family. So we want to just let you know that we will definitely follow up on that. And so that expect that to be coming. They're outside. I also want to let you know that we have partnered with San Ysidro Health. And San Ysidro Health is instrumental in the community. And we want you, please, to stop by the mobile lab. They provided the mobile lab, not for Palomar, but for you. And they serve underinsured and underinsured children and adults, elderly, whomever, and they have a lot of free services, which don't get a lot of free things nowadays, but they have a lot of free services. So they're out there. They'll have information for you. We also have some refreshments that are out there, and they're free. We'd like for you to stay and mingle if you can. But then we also want to acknowledge some of our supporters. We had some donations from Wrigley Supermarket and a few people here that have just really worked behind the scenes. We didn't know if it was going to be 10 people or 100 people. So we really planned for a much larger event. So there was a lot of people that were working behind the scenes, and I want to acknowledge them for everything that they've done. I also want to give a few minutes to Daryl, if he wants to come and talk about another program that's part of Mental Health America. Our brother Pierce and I went to the graduation. I won't explain it. I'll let him explain it, but we want to get this information out as well.
Hello, how's everyone doing?
Yeah.
All right. Like I said, my name is Daryl as well. I'm program facilitator for a program called Father the Child. And basically what Father the Child does, it helps men become better men so that in turn they can be better fathers and be more active in their kids' lives. We teach different skills, parenting skills, social skills, self-care, self-awareness, fathering skills, and parenting skills. So it's a 12-week course. It's free. Everything Mental Health America does is free. It's a 12-week course, once a week for 2 hours. Okay? We provide services like we have what we call flex funds. That's where we help the men with job readiness. Anything that has to do with job readiness, whether it's a bus pass so you can get back and forth for work. If you're in construction, we help you out with work boots. We also help out with like maybe car registration. And let's say you have something that you want to do that's not considered job readiness, but it'll help you with your kids. We'll improvise. We'll create something. Like for instance, if you have something to pay for that's very expensive, we'll pay for something else that's job readiness so that you can use the money to pay for that, if that makes sense. So once again, it's called Father the Child, and we're just trying to change men and help these men be more involved in their kids' lives because as men, we're key to the success of our children.
Question.
People don't know. Some do here. Oh, I'm sorry.
Where are your classes?
This same class right here, 4069 30th Street, every Monday night from 6 to 8. Oh, we also just started, I don't know if you're familiar with Meadowbrook Apartments.
Yeah.
We just started hosting classes at Meadowbrook Apartments Wednesdays from 5 to 6:30. Any other questions?
And I'm kind of passionate about this as well because I grew up without a father in the home. My mother was my father. And when you look at families and families in America, so goes the father, so goes the family. That's not to say that our women aren't doing an outstanding job, because they are. My own mother did that. But they're now having to play roles that are, they're having to be the father and the mother. And so this is something that impacts our society throughout. And so I'm very supportive, not because of my relationship with him, but because of the importance of the issue altogether. He's probably not going to, he's not expecting this, but we went over to Grand Avenue, and they have a food distribution program that I just think is out of sight. And so if Brother Pierce or if Brother Vernon, one of you guys want to say anything about that food distribution program, you're more than welcome. If not, we'll go ahead and go into a dismissal prayer.
I would just like to say you did an outstanding job. Your son,
You don't make me start preaching, bro. It's all on God. But Brother Pierce.
Thank you. What a blessing it is to be here today. I'd like to thank Brother Williams and the congregation here for the wonderful job that they've done in putting this together. I'd like to thank you for your wonderful presentation. And this is the second and third time I've heard you. I have a daughter who has some mental problems, and I'd like to say that I'm on the way of having her because of some of the information that I was able to obtain from even the things about the food program at Grand Avenue. We give away food every second and fourth Saturday of every month. It's free to us and free to people who couldn't get it. We pick it up at the food bank. They give it to us. All we have to do is go pick it up, bring it prepared, and give it to people. We don't have a pantry where we serve food. We serve produce. Everything we get is something that is not perishable. We don't have the facilities to freezers and stuff like that before we just give away good perishable food. Our goal is to feed 200 people every second and fourth Saturday. So far, that's been successful. And the people at the food bank is asking us to either try to expand it or get somebody to work with us. We're trying to work with the Palomar congregation. We're not the only congregation in the city that does that. As you drive by places like this morning, the church up there on Palm Avenue, they'll give away food today. They do it on a larger scale than we do because their situation is different. The food bank will actually deliver the food to your location, but you have to have so many people. They bring it by the pallet. We don't do that because everything we get, we have to give it away in a couple of days because we don't have to pay. I'd like to thank Brother Lee being interested in that for coming out to see our operation. And one other thing I'd like to say while I'm standing up here, the Brotherhood Picnic is the 7th of June this year. Going to be at Admiral Baker's Field. We went out there doing the same seminar and we learned a whole lot out there. The facility out there is much better for what we want to do than Royal Field where we used to have it. So the 2nd of June, we're setting up to have a Brotherhood Picnic, so please allow me to be part of that. Thank you once again for this wonderful symposium today. And the only thing that I'm discouraged about is we don't have enough people here. Let us just be a beginning. Next time, let all of us come together and bring somebody. And this place ought to be full. We've got a whole bunch of people in and out of the church that really need this information. And I'm a living example. It works. It works. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Pierce. This really does conclude our program today. It's about 11:15, so we're going to be out of here a little bit early. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank Dr. Reynolds. I want to thank Dr. Curry. They, as I mentioned before, they are getting married, so they had to take off. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out, taking a little bit of your time. We are going to, again, follow up with Dr. Reynolds, have her come back out and do the full course, and maybe this time, like Brother Pierce said, we can really work to invite people. Because I don't get any benefit, you don't get any benefit. The benefit is what happens to everybody else. And so we want to get this information out as soon as possible. So I'm going to ask Brother Wes Jackson if he'll come up and close us with a prayer. Then after that, please make sure you stop by San Isidro Health Center. Pick up some flyers. We've got some refreshments downstairs for you. Please, please, please avail yourself. Everything is free. We've taken care of that. And we want to thank you once again for coming on out. God bless you.
All right. Please be standing, please. Father God, again, it's in you that we live and move and have a very being. I'm so thankful, Father, for, first of all, for knowing you. We're thankful for your Son, Jesus the Christ. And because of that common belief, that's what brings us here this morning. We're thankful, Father, for those who have come out to teach us more. We just think about, Father, how what's going on here relates to people, to your people, as we try to take the gospel to folk, a different world than it was even yesterday. We need to know talents. We need wisdom. And we also need ability combined with your wisdom. And so we just pray, Father, that we'll avail ourselves to get more knowledge so that we can reach more people for you. We're just so thankful for your Son, Jesus, and all that he has done in our lives. And we just pray, Father, as we leave this place, Father, we will be even more committed to help folk, not to condemn folk, but try to see that they have issues just like we even have our own issues. And so help us to be able to help them. Thank you again, Father, for all that you do for us. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.